Welcome to the test review video for Cycle 2 test in Unit 1. You will be having your test tomorrow if you are in A-Day classes, or Friday if you are in the B-Day classes. After this review, if you still have questions, I would suggest attending tutoring to get those cleared up before the test. So let's go ahead and get started. So question 1 says, which of the following is the definition of a function? A function has x and y values, but the important part is that the x values do not repeat. So the correct answer is D. It has x and y values, but the x values cannot repeat. You might remember that from middle school. Number 2. Given the following arithmetic sequence, identify its critical attributes. Identify the common difference that is identified by the variable D. Because it's an arithmetic sequence, the common difference is going to be found using either addition or subtraction. If I start at 8.5 and I am moving to 12, that means my numbers are getting bigger, so my common difference is going to be addition. If you struggle with figuring out what you're adding or subtracting, this is how you can use your calculator to do it. Subtract these two numbers. So do this number minus this number. 12 minus 8.5. And whatever the calculator gives you, that's your difference. So then you check it. 8.5 plus whatever the calculator told me the difference was, 3.5, and it equals 12. Well, if I do 12 plus 3.5, it should equal 15.5, which it does. And then 15.5 plus 3.5 equals 19. So notice how I'm adding 3.5. That is my common difference. So every time to move forward, we're adding 3.5. So that is my common difference, plus 3.5. Identify the term when n equals 1. These are all the terms. A term is any number in the sequence. N is based on the position that the number is in the sequence. So if we create a table, and this is going to be a little crowded, the top numbers are n, the bottom numbers are the terms. So 8.5 is the first term, 12 is the second term, 15.5 is the third term, 19 is the fourth term. So identify the term when n equals 3. So when n is 3, my term is 15.5. Identify the term when n equals 1. So when n is 1, or my first term, is 8.5. Now this one is backwards. What is n when the term is 19? Well, that's my 19 in my term, so this time n is 4. Then it says list the next 4 terms of the sequence. So they gave me the 4th term, so I need to find 5, 6, 7, and 8. So I continue my pattern. Well, I already know what my common difference is. I stopped at 19, so 19 plus 3.5 is 22.5. 22.5 plus 3.5 is 26. You just continue the pattern. 26 plus 3.5 is 29.5, and then 29.5 plus 3.5 is 33. So once you know that common difference, that's how the pattern keeps going. Number 3, similar to number 2, but we're finding something different. So this time it says find the common difference, which we did up here. The first term, which we kind of did here, but then this time they're asking for the 0 term. So the common difference is found by figuring out how you move in the pattern, right? A lot of you get really confused when you have negative numbers. So I'm going to ignore these negative numbers for now, and I'm going to use the positive numbers. Well, I know that to get from 3 to 7, I have to add. And this one's a little bit easier than the other one because it had decimals. Well, 3 plus 4 is 7. And then I can check it here. 7 plus 4 is 11. Well, it works for those, so now I go back and check it here. Double check in your calculator, even if you think you know what it is, because some of you are making small mistakes because you're not checking in your calculator. Negative 5 plus 4 is a negative 1. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3. I know the positives work, so I'm only checking my negatives. So to continue my pattern, I just keep adding 4. So that is my common difference. A sub 1, which is the first term, right? This 1 right here means I'm looking for the first term. Well, that's my first term because that's the first number in the sequence. My first term is negative 5. Now, this here is asking for the 0 term, right? And I know this is the first term because if I make a table like I did up here, I would write a 1 above negative 5. Well, I need the 0 term, and 0 comes before 1. So in order to find the 0 term, I need to move backwards. Well, forward tells me to do plus 4. So backwards is going to be the opposite. So it's going to be minus 4. Check in your calculator. Negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9. Double check using your calculator. Better safe than sorry. Number 4, same type of problem, different numbers. Find the common difference. So I start at 6.25 and I am moving to 4.50. Well, that number is getting smaller, so I'm subtracting. Well, what am I subtracting? Well, I don't know. 4.5 minus 6.25. I'm subtracting 1.75. So let me check it. 6.25 minus 1.75 is 4.5. 4.5 minus 1.75 is 2.75. 2.75 minus 1.75 is 1. 1 minus 1.75 is negative 0.75. So in order to continue this sequence, we are subtracting 1.75. That is my common difference. Double check between all of your numbers in the sequence to make sure that what you think it is actually works. A sub 1 is asking for the first term. If you are number 1, you are in first place. This is the first number in my sequence, so 6.25. A sub 0, I got to go backwards. So instead of subtracting 1.75, I'm going to add 1.75. Some of you may be able to do this without the calculator. If you can, good, but double check. 6.25 plus 1.75 is 8. So A sub 0 is 8. Number 5, which of the following is written in function notation? Function notation, the most common form of function notation is f of x. But it could also be g of x or h of x. The most important part is that it has the x in parentheses. This variable up front can be different. So if I look at my answer choices and the things I wrote down, the correct answer is B. Function has to have the x in the parentheses. Number 6, write a recursive formula given the following sequence. For the recursive formula, you need 2 things. We need the common difference, and we need to be able to identify the first term, and that's it. You're going to have to remember the actual formula for the sequence for the test, but I'll write it here in a second. So the common difference, again, negative, negative, negative. If the negatives confuse you and you have positives, then use the positives and then go back and check. to get from 1 to 3 is plus 2. Well, let me make sure that actually works. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 plus 2 is positive 1. So use the positives if you have that option. If they're all negatives, then you're just going to have to figure it out. But if you have negatives and positives, use the positives and then check it with everything else. First term, negative 5. I have everything I need to write the recursive formula. The recursive formula is a sub n equals a sub n minus 1 plus d, and then we identify our first term. The only two things that I am going to change are this and this with these two numbers. So my final answer is a sub n equals a sub n minus 1. My common difference is plus 2. And my first term is negative 5. That's my answer. All you need is to be able to identify the common difference in the pattern or the sequence, and then be able to identify the first term. Moving to the back. Number 7. Given the function f of n equals negative 3x plus 5, find f of negative 8. Slight typo, this should be an n, but it doesn't really change anything. Here, instead of n, they gave me negative 8. So what I'm going to do is replace this negative 8 where I have an n inside my equation, or my function. So negative 3, and if I replace a variable, I have to use parentheses. Well, what did they put inside the parentheses here? Negative 8, that's my n. So I'm going to put negative 8 inside my parentheses. I'm going to put this in my calculator. Negative 3, parentheses, negative 8 plus 5 equals 29. That is the answer. F of negative 8 equals 29. Number 8, evaluate the following function for the given domains. So these are my domain values. If you remember from the videos in the different levels, domain is the x value. So all of these are my x values. I'm going to plug all of these in here. I'm going to show you a faster way of doing it. You can do each one individually like we did in number 7, but there's a faster way of doing it. So I am going to replace this with all of this at the same time. So watch closely. Negative 12. These are in the curly brackets or braces. Control, close parentheses. I'm going to plug all of these numbers in. Negative 2, comma 0, comma 12. So that took place of my x, and then I have plus 4. You can do each one individually, and you'll still get the right answers, but this is a faster way of getting all three answers at the same time. And my answers are 28, 4, and negative 140. The way you write domain and range needs to be from least to greatest. With no repeats. None of the numbers can repeat. So the calculator told me 28, 4, and negative 140. They need to be from least to greatest with no repeats. So the correct answer, the best answer is B. Don't pick A, even though the numbers are right. They need to be from least to greatest. All right. Number 9, find the domain for the given range of negative 10 and the function f of x equals 2x plus 12. So I need to find the domain if I have the range. Range is the y value. Y is the same thing as f of x. So this is going to be plugged in for this f of x. So my equation or function is going to look like this. Negative 10 equals 2x plus 12. I need to find the domain. Up here, remember we said domain is the x value, so I need to solve for x. Well, the way I do that, here, I need to solve for x, right? So I need to subtract 12 on both sides. Negative, or these cancel out. Negative 10 minus 12. Again, even if you think you know, please use your calculator and double check. Negative 10 minus 12 equals negative 22. And then I have negative 22 equals 2x. I solve for x by dividing both sides by 2. Negative 22 divided by 2 is negative 11. So my answer, my x value, x equals negative 11. The cool thing is you can check it. So if I plug this answer in here, it should give me that. 2 times negative 11 plus 12 equals negative 10, what I started with. So that's a cool way to check it. Number 10. They give you the recursive formula and the first term, and they want us to find the fifth term. Well, this is the first term, and I know it's the first term because it has a 1. So I have 5, and I need to find the fifth term. So that's second, third, fourth, fifth. I'm looking for this number. Well, how do I get that number? This is my previous term. What am I doing to each of the previous terms? I am subtracting 3. That is my common difference. 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 minus 3 is negative 1. If you need the calculator, please use the calculator. I would rather have you use the calculator to get it right than to guess. Negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. Negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7. This is the answer we're looking for because we want the fifth term. 11. Given the recursive formula and the first term, what is the third term in the sequence? Okay, well, this is my first term, negative 2. I want the third term, second, third. So I'm looking for this number right here. What is happening to the previous term? This is my previous term. I have a 4 in front of it. When there's a number in front of a variable, that means it is being multiplied. So my rule is times 4. So I'm just going to multiply each of the previous terms times 4. Negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Negative 8 times 4 is a negative 32. That's my answer. Almost done. Couple more problems. Write a formula for the nth term of the arithmetic sequence. So this time we're writing the nth term formula. That one looks like slope-intercept form. We use different variables. So first I need to find my common difference. My numbers are getting bigger, so I know I'm adding, right? What am I adding? Well, I'm not 100% sure. This number minus this number. That's how you find the difference. 4.25 minus 1.5. I'm adding 2.75, and then I'm going to check it. 4.25 plus 2.75 is 7. 7 plus 2.75, 9.75 plus 2.75 is 12.5. So I know what my common difference is, and I checked it. So my common difference is 2.75, or plus 2.75. For the nth term formula, we also need to find the 0 term, like what we did on the other side of the review on the front page, right? So I need to go backwards because this is my first term. So to go backwards, I'm going to do the opposite of plus 2.75, which is going to be minus 2.75. So 1.5 minus 2.75, that means negative 1.25. Negative 1.25. So I have the two things I need. I'm going to write my nth term formula. So it is going to be f of n equals my common difference 2.75. I got to keep my variables the same. So I put n, and then minus 1.25. So this is my nth term formula for this sequence. Now that I have the formula, they want me to find what is the value when n equals 120. So in here, instead of having n, they replaced it with 120. So in here, I'm going to replace n with 120. When you replace it, you write parentheses around it. So I'm using the same formula from right here. I'm just going to plug this in here because that's where the n is. And now I just calculate that. 2.75 parentheses 120 minus 1.25. And my answer is 328.75. Last one. Same thing, different numbers. Same process. So first we're going to identify our common difference. This time my numbers are getting smaller, so that means I am subtracting. Well, what am I subtracting? This number minus this number will tell me. 4.5 minus 7. I'm subtracting 2.5. 4.5 minus 2.5 should give me 2. Minus 2.5 should give me negative 0.5, which it does. So once you find your common difference, double check it. Minus 2.5. First term means I go backwards. So I'm going to add 2.5. Some of you can do that without the calculator. If you can't, please use the calculator. 7 plus 2.5 is 9.5. So my zero term, or ace of 0, is 9.5. I have everything I need to write my formula. It's going to look like this, except these two numbers are going to be these two numbers. So f of n equals negative 2.5n plus, because this is positive, 9.5. Well, I have my formula. I need to find out what the value is when n equals 42. So I'm going to replace this and this with 42. They already did it here. So I'm just going to replace it in my formula. Negative 2.5 parentheses, because that's where the n was, plus 95. And in the parentheses, I'm going to replace it with 42. So now I just calculate that. Negative 2.5 parentheses 42 plus 95 equals negative 10. Did I do that right? Okay. So, what color? Oh, here we go. And that's it. If you still have any questions, please make sure that you attend tutoring before your test. Good luck. Just kidding, I found my mistake. It was supposed to be plus 9.5, not 95. So I wanted to fix it before you all go telling your teacher that there's a mistake in the video. Negative 95.5. Be careful with your decimals, they make a big difference. Good luck.